Good evening, good morning, wherever you are. Hello, greetings, and welcome to our stream, which, as I understand, we're live now uh, in our Dharma drama series, Misconduct, Malice and Malaysia, How Allegations Reveal a Culture of Abuse. My name is Raymond, and I work as senior writer for Buddhist Law Global. And with us today are some wonderful guests. I think we have mostly regulars with one amazing newcomer. I'll just briefly introduce them. We have Venerable Tenzin Peljor, who is a fully ordained Buddhist monk. Sonia Gomes, a Vajrayana Buddhist, who, as I understand, has been recently traveling across Nepal and India. Our new guest joining us is Saskia Troy, who is a corporate social responsibility, strategy, and marketing expert. And we also have Michael Nolan, a former monastic who has spoken up against institutional abuse, and Sherab Wong, a lay Buddhist and translator in the Vajrayana tradition. Welcome to everyone. Great to see you. As I understand, this is going to be a more casual kind of live stream, and I hope we can have a rich and productive discussion about the issues tonight. How's everyone doing?
I'm well, thanks.
Very good, thank you.
Wonderful.
Everything's perfect.
Everything's perfect. That's good. That's good.
Everything is perfect as it is. Yeah.
As it is. Yeah.
As it is.
As I understand, given the recent tragic events in the Middle East, I'm under the understanding that we are going to have 1 minute's silence for the unfolding mutual destruction, and so perhaps we could time it, and then we'll resume within 1 minute. Amitofo. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So perhaps we could get started with tonight's topic, which, if you have been following past programs, we have been speaking about misconduct and the nature of abuse and how it affects victims, how it happens, and certainly how people, individuals, and institutions respond to it. And so the reason why this stream is called what it's called, tonight's program, is because a teacher in Malaysia specifically has been under investigation for allegations of severe misconduct, and the range of accusations is indeed large and severe. And so I'm not so much opposed to case itself is very concerning. But more importantly, are the questions that follow. So, for example, responses from the institution, from other groups, how they respond to it, and you know, even philosophical aspects of the nature of abuse. So, for example, the guru concept, uh, whether that whether there need to be questions asked about the nature of the guru in the broader conversation about abuse. And so, basically, what I'd like to do, Sherab, I think could you describe a little bit what the recent incident was, and we could launch into some of the questions that I've sent our guests tonight.
Okay, thanks, Rem. Briefly speaking, there is a Vajana teacher involved in this case where he is accused of raping and sexually abused for more than 100 women in Malaysia. And so it was quite a big thing. Yeah, since he's going to, he's the first Malaysian, he's the first Tibetan monk who was jail in Malaysia because of this case, and a lot of things we can discuss, especially regarding teacher student relationship in the Vajana community in Malaysia. Yeah.
And there is an umbrella organization, right? The
Yeah,
Vajrayana Council of Malaysia, right?
Vajana Buddhist
And
Council in Malaysia. Yeah.
Vajrayana Buddhist Council, so VBCM as
Yes,
they like to
yes,
call it.
yes, yes, yes.
So my understanding is they have not really responded to the recent events. No.
Yes, we approached them, but they refused to come out and speak about that. Not even a word they mentioned about this case. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
So now, I we could talk about Malaysia and we can talk about the individual case, but I like to sort of like broaden the question, which is my first one is: do any of you have any sort of opinions or thoughts about, in the case of allegations of misconduct or abuse, how do you think an umbrella group or an association would ideally respond to these allegations? What are the first steps that any responsible organization would take to, you know, respond to allegations? I'd like to know you guys' thoughts.
Independent investigation announcement. That would be that's normal.
And what would an independent investigation entail? What would that organization need to do?
Well, I guess they have to choose a good organization that people respect, which is not easy because, I mean, it immediately I have the feeling from what Sherab said that there's already like hard feelings about the umbrella organization. So if it cares that it has any kind of voice, then it should establish some kind of credible group that has no conflict of interest. So that's what independent means. No, it means the conflict of interest that people suspect is pervasive, perhaps in one country or other all over the world. I don't know. Like um, there'll be some point where we'll talk about other lamas and their conflicts of interest, and so if they get in first and start, guiding things, it's not independent. So that's why I mean, two of the big groups, Shambhala and Rigpa, they engaged some kind of organization, but then just like some kind of American political group, they just ignored all of the recommendations. So what was the point of that, other
so,
than
so,
perhaps for the report?
so you've highlighted a very important sort of example. So where in the case of big Western-based organization like Shambhala and Rigpa, they did go through this process, as far as I understand, to actually get an independent investigator that was not affiliated with, say, like a temple or monastery or whatnot. But then the report came out, and then, you know, what they did afterwards was really just what they did, right?
Don't you get some kind of fracturing? It depends on the group. There's always like the very loyal inner circle of that Lama, and then they might have a lot of influence in the umbrella group. So that's usually, how could it possibly go for so long in this case, Sherab, if it wasn't for already a lot of damage control and cover-ups and suppression of people who may have asked for guidance and gotten the wrong guidance, you know, like the Catholic Church style, scary guidance or whatever. I mean, does an independent investigation fix that? Necessarily, I don't know. Maybe.
For me, I think if you ask me about this independent investigation, it is hardly smoothly done in the West. Like, for example, like you say, Michael, for Shambhala and Rigpa, even FPMT, after long a long period of discussion and confrontation with the group, then only they are agreed to have this so-called independent investigation. Then you compare to the Asian mindsets of, we are worried about if we talk bad about our guru, certain bad things will happen to us, karma, be careful of the karma. And then also in Vajrayana tradition that we respect the guru, we treat our guru as a Buddha, So there are many complicated aspects we need to consider about. For me, I don't think we can hope we can have any hope from organized organization. I think.
Yeah, that's why my first question would be: is there any announcement to the police? Is there any announcement by the authorities? Because the point is, you cannot rely on the Buddhist organizations. You cannot rely really on the Buddhists. You need to rely on state authority and state criminal investigation, because you use the term rape. Rape is a crime. So then, of course, this depends on the survivors. If they have the support, are brave enough, and have the conditions. I mean, the support inwardly and outwardly to go to the police, because it's very hard and you can be re-traumatized to go to the police.
Yes.
And you need support for all of this. But in general, my first question would not be to seek any support from Buddhist organizations, rather from the state, because usually Buddhists are not really able to cope with this reasonably.
Yeah,
Well,
apparently so.
Is there any criminal investigation? Of course, is my question now.
let me put this into context. So, the alleged victim, right, approached the police after 7 years of silence. So this alleged incident occurred 7 years ago, and in relation to what Michael's said, she claims that she came out because she continued to see this alleged abuser continue to do the same or similar things to other women in the Buddhist community. And why she kept silent in the first place is for many reasons. One of them was being the fear that she would be ostracized by her family. Her family did not approve of her sort of like joining this particular sangha. And the crazy thing is that by coming out and saying, hey, I was allegedly abused by this individual, she was terrified that they would say, well, we told you so. Like it's a kind of like it wouldn't be exactly sympathetic, the response. And she also had fear that her husband would divorce her and that kind of thing. And so, yes, in the Asian context, but also specific individual context, there are very complicated dimensions as to why someone would wait so long to come out with these allegations. But one of the things, as Venerable Tenzin highlighted, we made sure to ask her if she had filed a police report, and she did. So the police report, we have seen the police report with our own eyes. Sherab has translated it into English
Mandarin.
because police reports are filed in a Malay Bahasa, which is the national language of Malaysia. And so, yes, it does detail with some detail as to what happened that night 7 years ago. So that's the story. That's the context of what we're discussing here.
Good. Now, the point is, if you have now a basis, there is a legal case open, then you can try to pressure the Buddhist head organization to relate to it. If you don't have anything, they usually would not do it, except they understand there is a problem and they have clear structures and procedures that people who either experienced or have observed abuse can relate to them. But usually Buddhist organizations are not interested, often don't have the capacity either to investigate any such case and to take responsibility. They rather act if it goes to the press, through the press. So, and then actually what Michael said, the independent investigations by Rigpa, Shambhala, FPMT were all due to public pressure because it went through the public press. So that's why my response, if you ask us what we think Buddhist organizations should do, we can think whatever we want, they won't do it. Because either they are not interested or they are not capable, they don't have the structure, and they only respond when there is public pressure and their reputation is threatened. So basically, this is what I wanted to highlight. And everything what Michael said, I totally agree. But the thing is, there is not so much interest in the head organizations to cope with these things.
Okay, come back to Malaysian context. There's a case also, I think just 2 years back. A Mahayana Chinese monk raped more than 10 teenagers. This is not the first time he did it. He did it 10 years ago. And they reported this case to MBA, Malaysian Buddhist Association, the largest Buddhist association in Malaysia. And it was reported everywhere in newspaper, but still, they refused to take any actions, even to the extent of this was exposed widely in the media, worldly, globally, everywhere. But he's still a monk now. For your information, he's still a monk now. He hired the most expensive lawyer to fight for his case. Now the case is just, we don't know what happened. Yeah. He managed to get rid of that for many times. Even he continuously did the same thing again and again. Yeah. He has a way to run away from that. And then because there's a big umbrella brother behind it, the so-called organizations, so-called protecting it, Yeah. So I don't think the organization, any organization, is a solution. Normally they are the source of the problem. Yeah. Sorry to say that.
Any thoughts? Sonia, Saskia, on like the nature of the group, the nature of the collective, the nature of the organization, whether it's actually more of a problem as opposed to a solution. Have you had any heard of anything or experience of any cases like this? Saskia, she's
Saskia,
muted. She's muted.
Can you unmute yourself? Wait, I unmute you. Yeah, you're unmuted.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yes, I had some similar experiences indeed here. That I tried to complain at a higher institution, and then the email addresses didn't even work. And also, I recognized the problem of the conflict of interest. That the people that were investigating a complaint, they were working for the same person that was investigated. I think the outcomes of such an investigation, they're not valid. So we have the same problem here, yeah. And of course, I can't say much about it because I was already threatened to be sued when I spoke up. So, but I clearly recognize the problem. Yeah.
that's really awful. I'm sorry to know about that.
Yeah.
And so this is a case of the organization. I mean, forget about forget about thinking about what they should do. I mean, these guys are coming down on the side of the accused. They're coming down on the side of the alleged abuser, and this presents a whole new dimension as to what Michael highlighted with what we know happened with certain cases in the Catholic Church.
Yeah, it's a similar. So
Did anyone say something to you like about hearsay, like legalese, and just sort of say, "Oh, you can't say that because it's hearsay," or when if you relate somebody, like a victim tells you something, and then you tell other people,
yeah,
and then as if the whole world is a courtroom, but it's not really. It's courtroom is different.
Yeah. You mean if I was threatened? Well, actually, I was threatened 4 times, and one of the times was legally in a very subtle way. But well, actually, it wasn't even about me. I was just trying to help presumed victims that were coming up to me, telling their stories, and I found out that it was quite impossible to stand up for them. Yeah. That's my experience. It's my personal experience. I found that it was quite impossible. Yeah.
So one thing about this case that we're talking about with this, what's the name of this Lama? Is it Rinpoche or in Malaysia?
Yeah, it's a Tuku.
So he's like
Please say the name, please.
Yes, say the
Yes,
name.
say the name.
I'll just refer to my report. It was this. If you excuse me, I just need to go to my website, which is actually where we first released a report about the allegations. So let's see. Chagtrul Thupten Tinli Rinpoche. Chagtrul Thupten Tinli Rinpoche. And this will, and we will talk about him a little bit because it leads to the other, question, which is there a difference in handling a case where the accused is described as, say, a fraud or scammer or someone outside of a legitimate lineage, and whether the alleged abuser is actually part of a legitimate transmission or a well-known school. The reason I asked this question is this guy. We did some research on him. He has some heterodox teachings. He has on his own website. It's not private. It's not secret. You can just go on his website and say and see that he sees Padmasambhava as identical to a guy called King Gesar. Now, if you've heard of King Gesar is the hero of a Eurasian Tibetan epic. His long story is a long story, almost like a King Arthur kind of figure in Central Eurasia. So there's a Mongolian, Tibetan, all sorts of language versions of this particular myth, this epic, and so this guy sees Padmasambhava as King Gesar, and as I understand, that's not a common view among Vajrayana.
But I have to clarify a little bit here.
It's not uncommon.
According to this lineage, actually, they really consider King Gesar as a manifestation of Guru Rinpoche. Actually, yeah, it's quite common in this Nyingma lineage.
Okay, so Nyingma lineage. So that's what I wanted to highlight. Okay, so I wanted to highlight this. So thanks for the clarification. I wanted to highlight that the nature of a response can be very different when you bring up like an allegation of abuse for any person. Let's just have a hypothetical accused, right? There can be variations of a response. So one can be something like, oh, this guy's a fraud. This guy's not legitimate, right? And so therefore he is outside the sort of like the mechanisms of criticism. He's a fraud. We don't need to care about him. He's just a he's just a loon, and he's illegitimate. We don't need to think about it. The other is actually, well, this guy's part of a legitimate branch, right? And it could either spur someone to take action because they're worried about the legitimacy of the school, or it could make them double down and say, no, in that case, what this guy does is not wrong because he's part of the legitimate lineage. How could the legitimate lineage be wrong? So, I'm just highlighting several scenarios in which a response could be calibrated when an alleged allegation pops up. Anyone have any opinions about this kind of responses?
So my response to this is like take the case of Sonia Gomes here. Many people say, oh, he make mistake because he's not a real Lama. But in my understanding, he's a real Lama. He's a recognized so-called. He can make mistakes. Regardless whether he's officially recognized or a legitimate lineage or not, this is not the issue actually. But some organization or some individual, they would like to say, okay, why he make mistake or creating certain crime because he doesn't belong to a real lineage. I think this is a fallacy. This is a wrong view. I think even he belongs to the real lineage or he is legitimate tukus, still he can make mistakes and creating problem for the society. Yeah, I think that's the basic common views that we need to have before we accuse certain people of doing the wrong things. Yeah.
I think if the Lama is labeled and acknowledged to be a scam and outside of the lineage, the difference will be that Tibetan authoritative lamas will step in and support the denouncement or pointing out of his misbehavior. But if the Lama is part of the lineage, they won't do so. And most people saw Sukha Rinpoche as part of the lineage. The Tibetan authority lamas, let's say like this. So that's why nobody really criticized Sukha. So there is a difference to answer your question, because you will get more support if your abusive lama is a scam, and you will unlikely get any support if he is part of the lineage.
Yes.
Isn't it? I mean.
Yes.
Anyone have any thoughts about the current? Yeah.
I would like to say something if possible. Is it possible? So
Yes,
first, good afternoon, all Dharma brothers and sisters from India to all. Second is this issue, it's about Malaysian Buddhism, but it's about Vajrayana, okay? Because this happens in Vajrayana all over the world. This is not an exception in Malaysia. In Malaysia, it was now revealed and it was done a deep research on the issue. Somebody give the face, presented court complaint, right? So, but this is happening in Vajrayana. Let's be very, very clear. The Malaysian case, to be honest with you, I'm not very much into the Malaysian Buddhism. In fact, I am. I wouldn't like to enter in this much deeply, but in fact, I am in some kind of sense that I know from some friends in Malaysia that Malaysian Buddhism in the Vajrayana tradition is very typical. People have blind faith. They go to the guru. What the guru says is a law. And then I will suggest Raymond and Sherab next discussion that is very important about Samayas and Vajrahel, because many people in Malaysia and in Vajrayana, they have a lot of issues like exposing things because they think they are breaking Samayas, they think they go to Vajrahel, they think this and that. This is like an excuse from many teachers to scare and to, what I say, blackmail and brainwash their students. So I'm sorry to be very direct, but this is very true.
Good.
So I think we need to bring this to discussion. What is Samaya? What is Vajrahel? When somebody goes to Vajrahel, What is the real conditions? What do you need to do? Or your guru is not, exclude to go to Vajrayana. Nobody talks about this. Huh? What is Samaya? I want to know what is Samaya. I'm so sorry. Because when people say, please, you don't mention these things, Sonia, don't say this because you're breaking Samaya, please, please, please. To be honest with you, I think this is just brainwashing and to scare people to not open their mouths. And I think about the umbrella institutions, because I didn't have opportunity to talk about this. I think umbrella institutions, it depends. I think, I'm so sorry what I'm going to say, but they work like mafia. It's my opinion. They work like a mafia, installed mafia. They are like important people. If they are connected to the, as people say, the Lama, and they have some interests with the Lama, they will never, ever complain about the Lama, expose the Lama, give the support to students. They will always maintain silence and will always protect the Rinpoche, Lama, whatever. The other question is very simple. What is a Rinpoche nowadays? Because everybody nowadays is a Rinpoche. This is another thing. I even see people putting their names on Facebook, this one Rinpoche, that one Rinpoche, just because somebody called them Rinpoche in a usual conversation. So please, what is a Rinpoche? In our days, you can buy that title. And in this case, according to what I read, and please, Raymond, correct me if I'm saying something wrong, but in this case, somebody recognized this Rinpoche. He was recognized by somebody, so he was not like considered a scam. It didn't came from the street. We know in Bhutan everybody sell tulku titles, so this is no news for everybody. So what kind of Rinpoche is this one? Because when you told the name, we are talking about here this thing. I realized public was asking, what are we talking about Malaysia issue? So let's call the things by the names. This is this Rinpoche. He did this for many, many years. And there is another question. Why did he choose married women? Why, with so many available women, he decided to choose married women? This is very obviously because married women will not talk. Because they are married, it will be a big problem, and etc., etc., etc. So I must say maybe some malicious in this situation, but also I ask, why now? Why now bring this issue? If this was happening how many years ago? Why now? I'm realizing that many scandals are coming out in Asia. Why? What is the interest? Karmapa, we see this Taiwanese woman, then this Chinese, and now I see this Rinpoche. What is going on? There must be some interest behind all this. So I'm so sorry to say. That's why I say, because mafia, they have agenda. So thank you.
You raise many layers of excellent points, and I'm not presuming to address them all. And it's also I rather you guys talk, but yeah, like certainly in the case of the married woman, yeah, we do know for a fact that
Als je Sweden
um,
als
the alleged victim, that he picked her specifically for, because she tried to use, when she fought back against him, she protested that she was married, and that this wasn't on. And then I won't go into the specific details because it's extremely unpleasant, but let's just say that he declared that it didn't matter, he could make it all go away. And so that is itself a kind of perhaps a target, a way in which alleged abusers will target their victims, and then use the mystique and aura of their identity, of their religious identity, to say, oh, you're married, that's okay. But yeah, just focusing on that specific case. So, whether it's Malaysia or more generally worldwide, I'd like to hear you guys' thoughts.
If anyone wants me to speak, I could. I have heaps of answers to what some of these points.
Yeah.
But I might take a bit. So first, let me just say, people who do what I was trying to say before about Saskia being this side, Saskia being silenced and the legal thing, right? What I understood of this Malaysian-based Tibetan sort of Lama is that he's actually accused of 100 or more cases, right? And so I used when I was first outing Sogyal, and I wasn't the first, I was very similar to this victim. You know, I wasn't a victim on that level of like sexual abuse, but I was abused in so many different ways. Still figuring it out. That when I started to speak up, tons of victims came because I was doing it very publicly and semi-fearlessly, which because of a whole Samaya thing, people were coming at me. You're going to hell. You're forever Samaya breaker. Blah blah. And I'd be like, Samaya breaker. Okay, well I have this button called Facebook, unfriend and block. I never have to hear from you again. And I had to do that a lot, right, at that time. And so people would ask me about the scale, and I'd say, yeah, hundreds, plural 100, for Sogyal. And people are like, how do you come up with a number like that? And I say, all right, well, at first, it goes back to the 70s when he was like in squats and he was with it, And I've talked to psychologists who've been treating his victims for like years. And how many victims? They have like maybe 30. And guess what? You don't hear from them because they'll get put out of business by legal threats. They've got lawyers have a lot of money, they've got basically a silence thing that they've lost, and if they break it, they have to pay up, and that'll end their business. So no matter how much they want to, they have to be silent. And so that's one person with 30 odd sexual victims, and then some of those victims were like asked to provide their daughters and to him. So then that's even more. And then of course that's 3 decades long, so there's generations. And just the number of people that talk to me, like every retreat he was probably getting a new victim out of the audience, and he's doing retreats, I don't know, 10 times, 12 times more a year. So then people started saying, you can't say that, Sangye, as people used to refer to me, my monk name. You can't say that because it's hearsay. And I'd say, no, those are court rules, right? And this is I'm not in court. It's just not an evidentiary hearing. I'm allowed to warn people that, right, well, if you think he's a great Lama, maybe you should be aware of he's got victims like everywhere, all over the world, wherever he goes, And so he's now, as a Rinpoche, first of all, there used to only apparently be about 4 or 5 Rinpoches. So they're like breeding like rabbits, How do you get from 4 to thousands of them? They're not just buying titles. Anyone who's by birth somehow connected to a Lama might wangle their way into being recognized. The more wats and temples and that you build, the more they have thrones, and any throne can decide to enthrone someone and say that they're the rebirth of their previous teacher. And then there's like a lot of these narcissists, which are the majority of the victimizers. They're very happy to just say, from now on, you'll call me Rinpoche, and just enthrone themselves onto a non-existent throne. Then they just, and that's what Sogyal did, by the way. It doesn't matter how many, even though Ringu Tulku has backed him up that he's been educated and he comes from all these things, and his stories he's got tons of people legitimizing him. There's no throne in any temple that he was enthroned upon. So whatever rule that used to be, it's been tossed out the window ages ago. So dime a dozen Rinpoches, it's not and anyway, being a Tulku doesn't even supposedly mean that you're gifted in it. It just means you have potential. That's what Penor Rinpoche said as an excuse to why all the Tulkus he went around recognizing turned out to be a bunch of shitheels, like what's the name? Steven Seagal. That guy. What a I mean, come on. They have to live that in Penor Rinpoche's like, oh, I really messed up when I recognized that guy. So then the other thing you said, Samaya, right? Samaya, yes. It's first they won't tell you what it is. Or they'll give you a very simplified, have a good, kind heart and do whatever the fuck we tell you, basically. Like be obedient. Sogyal, before I finally broke free of Rigpa, in the most inner secret group, they're putting on the screens that we put everywhere, because I was in like an IT mode with prayers that we had to read out. They changed the refuge prayer, the most basic prayer that comes back all the way from the original Buddha, to say obey several times. You will obey and I was like, that's not what that's like, you're changing the Dharma, and this is super cult stuff. And I was just sitting there super angry, not moving my mouth, which normally would be noticed, and he'd be right onto you, but at that point he was like kind of aware that I was on the edge. So and then to just connect one more thing, Gesar, right? So that innermost group of people who have to practice like many, many hours a day, whenever something kind of a victim is pointing the finger, this group is told to pray, there's a problem, and it could upset the Dharma, if we don't all pray to suppress this person who's just possessed by demons or whatever. And we have very, very horrible prayers that are related to the Gesar lineage, because there's these activities, enlightened activities like enriching, getting money. They love that. Pacifying, which is pretty good if you ask me. Generally, that's a good activity. And the wrathful one, like liberating, which is basically means killing people in that lineage. So we're talking, that's what Gesar. So then when people would be like, they have this really wise and genuinely wise Lama from China and Tibet called Zenkar Rinpoche, they'd be like, why don't you translate it? We have to read it in Tibetan. And then when we find the translation, it's so disgusting and horrible about, I don't even want to say what it says, why is it like that? And he'd go, well, there were very, very bad people in the times of Gesar. Very, very bad. So they deserve that, So like, apparently everyone that complains about Sogyal deserves it too, They're all very bad people. So that's in the outer world of everyone else that complains and says anything are being demonized, right? So they think about that. Like, that takes it further even than being afraid of hell and repercussions. It dehumanizes, and so then those kind of people, once they get to that point, they can be told, well, it's actually a blessing to be raped by Rinpoche. So, you should think yourself lucky. He was going around, they'll be liberated in this life thanks to the Vajra blessing, and you know what Vajra means in that case. So that's what I, before I go too far, there you go.
Sherab, are you going to send this stream to VBCM maybe later?
Yeah, sure, definitely. I will because I have some good friends there. Definitely, I'm going to send this to
Yes,
him.
please.
By the way,
And,
I'm qualified to
definitely.
say all this. I've done a lot of Vajrayana practice, okay?
Yeah.
Many recitations and things.
Well, basically, I think the guru-disciple relationship is very, very imbalanced here in so-called Vajrayana community, in my view. Yeah, I think we need to know more about this. Is like a caste system now almost. Yeah, I'm not sure whether Venerable Tenzin agree with me. It's like the guru is always higher than you. You have to listen to his command. I don't think this is how to say suitable for modern society, especially in democratic modern world now. Yeah, everybody should be treated equally. Yeah, and of course they use a reason of samaya to have because you need to have a pure vision, you know. So if you can view your guru's conduct as pure, why don't we can also view like bringing your guru to the court also is a pure conduct. Everything is pure, you know, according to Dzogchen, everything is pure. You have to view not only your guru, but since you cannot view everything as pure, so you start with your guru, you know. So that's the purpose of whole practice actually, to begin with a guru, using everything as a path, transforming everything as a path for your practice. Since you cannot use it as a path, so you start with your guru, start beginning viewing your guru as pure. But if you do deepen your practice, everything is pure. So even accusing your guru or exposing your guru scandal is so pure. Yeah. Everything's pure from the very beginning, you know. If we can extend the teaching in that way, that will be more suitable, I think. Yeah.
Sherab, you point to a very important point. To abuse the woman, they were labeled as the Dakinis. And when the Dakinis spoke up, I was abused, they were possessed by demons.
Women,
I mean, how crazy is this? They were Dakinis to get sex with them against their will, manipulating them. After they spoke up, they were possessed by demons. They were crazy and too ugly to even be raped. I mean, people said something like this. So again, they talk also just about pure view, but pure view is a one-way road for most of them. The guru is pure, I'm impure, and everybody who sees a fault in the guru is also impure. So that's why the guru is perfect, everything outside of the guru is imperfect, except they see the guru as pure. I mean, this is just crazy stuff. This is brainwashing, basically.
Yes,
and
it's brainwashing.
And it's totally unbalanced. It's extremely dangerous. So just to step in what you said, yes, there is a total inconsequence in applying the Vajrayana teachings.
Yeah. And
because
this is
you can bring the guru to the court, as you said.
Yeah, that's pure, very pure. And this is the purest thing that we should do now. I think we should, as a Vajrayana practitioner, I think we need to admit and even being aware that we have an issue here. There's a big elephant in our house. So every one of us, in layperson or monks or nuns or tukus or rinpoches or kempos or lamas, we need to have this kind of sincerity to admit that here we are very sick actually. We are sick to the utter bottom, you know. So we need to, unless we recognize and admit that there's an issue, otherwise we will not be able to solve the problem.
Saskia.
But what we have now is a little bit like a grassroots movement. You have some people who do something, and the umbrella organizations and the establishment doesn't do much. I mean, there are some differences. Some countries, umbrella organizations might do a little bit more, but basically it's a grassroots movement, and the establishment still uses their energy to keep up all the covering up and not addressing the issue, because it would force them to question themselves self-critically and to also address misunderstandings they have. And this would undermine their authority, I think. So it's difficult at the moment.
Do we have, Saskia, did you want to bring up something?
Yes, I think we really need to get rid of the idea that there are just some rotten apples within the system. Because they're not just a few rotten apples. It's also all the others that cover up, and also the ones that say that the women want to have sex with the guru and things like that. They are responsible as well. I think they're not 2 or 3 people that are just disgusting. That there are also the others that enable. The enablers, they enable those people to do that, and in that way the system can be corrupted. So I think there needs to be more attention for how to clear up the whole system instead of just chasing a few decadent gurus. So it's,
Who's heard the term Tibetan mafia?
So,
I didn't say Tibetan. I did wait. I didn't say
no, I said it.
Tibetan mafia.
You
I
didn't
said
say it.
umbrella
You said they act like a mafia.
organizations are like mafia. I didn't say Tibetan mafia.
But
Wait,
I've
I
heard
want to
it.
still
I've heard it a
alive,
lot.
please.
People
Okay.
tell me.
I'm just no.
Tibetans
I said
say
umbrella
something.
organizations sometimes worked as mafia because if they have interests, they many times they don't protect the victim. They play what I call the silence therapy.
Oh, I will put it in
Yeah.
either sometimes it's organization, sometimes an individual, a powerful individual who is behind the scenes. Sometimes, yeah.
To pick up the image of the mafia, actually, I have this story to share. I must be careful not to point out the person. It happened in Italy, where the mafia is coming from. There was a case. There was a case of abuse in a Buddhist center, and one person addressed it to the Tibetan teacher, and it was discussed internally amongst the monks, but not among the lay people. So when this person, a lay person, spoke with the Tibetan Lama about it, he said to this person, I don't say gender, but I really try to protect the identity. The Tibetan Lama said, we don't see, hear, and speak. And this person shouted on him, you talk like the mafia, and got totally angry with him. But the good point is this was an extraordinary free-minded Lama. Next day, he came to the person and apologized for having said we don't watch, hear, and speak about it. But this is the utter rare exception. I never heard a Tibetan Lama excusing for having responded to abuse allegations like this. There is really this. This was really said in Italy. We don't see, watch, and speak about it.
Yes, I would like to say another thing about these umbrella organizations and about the defense of the victims and about what Michael Nolan talked, that independent investigation is very important. I would like to say, I don't know in Malaysia, but I know in many other parts that these umbrella organizations, they all have agendas. They all have agendas and they all have some kind of connections with other sanghas, other rinpoches. So everything is interconnected. It's very difficult when a victim comes to complain to the organizations, say, oh, I'm hearing you. I will take care of your issue. Let's go further and see. Let's confront the teacher. Never. It's like Tenzin Peljor was saying, you don't hear, you don't see. It's like what is being used in the mafia. That's why I said umbrella organization is like a mafia. And the second part of this is the disheartedness and the lack of trust that the victims begin to have in the organizations, because they begin to realize that the first to betray them is not only the Rinpoche, is their own organization, their own Sangha. So this is horrible. This is horrible because then they begin to think, with whom I can talk. I cannot talk with my Rinpoche. I cannot talk with my organization. They are always putting me down or throwing me here or there, or their excuses not to pick my problem and face it. And then there is another horrible thing, and I will bring Sogyal Rinpoche here for this case. Tibetan lamas in Vajrayana, when they are accused of something, very rare come and apologize and assume what they did. As you see, for example, Sogyal Rinpoche, he went to retreat. He said, I'm going for retreat, and he went to retreat to Nepal. He never came and said, I apologize for what I did. And as you see, umbrella organization, many monasteries came, oh, you was such a high lama, you was such high this, oh my God, maybe this is not true. etc., others came and attacked him very hardly. Why? The ones who had agenda, they maintain their, skillfully, they use the skillful means and go back and don't want to be exposed. Why? Because money. What is it all involved in here? This is another thing I would like to talk about, this Rinpoche here in Malaysia that was in this text that Raymond wrote. Money, a lot of money. When there is no money, nothing of this happen. When there is a lot of money, then big problem. So when many organizations have agenda with this umbrella, then they don't come and say, I'm so sorry for the victims. I really, no. They say, oh, he was a great Rinpoche. He was a wonderful teacher. He did this, he did that.
Yeah.
But they never say the word, I am sorry, I apologize. What they teach to their students, be humble, put your ego aside, not what they practice. Tibetan
Agree.
pride.
Yes. So now I do really agree that I think money,
I'm sorry.
power, sex are the three aspects that we need to pay attention in this Vajrayana community. And I also agree with Tenzin. You say that change has to come from bottom up rather than top down. Yeah. So the next question will be how do we create change bottom up collectively? As Buddhists, as a Vajrayana practitioner, how do we do that? How do we create change until then it reaches to the critical mass, so that the change will happen naturally? Anyone have any idea on that, Michael?
I'm a very big fan of this bottom-up idea, but I've got no clue how people with no power can be like bringing change, other than by being critical. They have to be trained in critical thinking and be empowered to speak critically.
Yes.
And without fear. So from I mean, anyone that knows me knows that I go all over the place in tangents. So, but I just on the topic of organizations is, so if you have if you need something to be investigated, right? It needs to be done by people who are qualified. Otherwise, the whole world just goes, nah, that's just irrelevant, blah. So that's one of the reasons why organizations with qualified people have to exist to be engaged. But but what happened with Rigpa is that when we wrote this, like, because individuals get isolated and then compressed and gaslighted publicly, they're crazy, that you can't rely on them, fake stories are made, all this stuff. So the idea was to make a big letter with 10, 12 people signing it, and then not everyone had the courage to sign it. So but most of the original people did. And so then after that, they didn't say, oh, what's a good independent organization that we should hire. They just got some lawyers and said, we've engaged these lawyers to investigate the allegations. And so we really felt like we were being investigated. So they were like attacking us with the independent investigation. And the only way that, we turned it around on them by providing it was a real lawyer, and the lawyer was legit and not, was independent enough, so that once we gave them lots of overwhelming evidence, they had to come to the conclusion that the allegations were mostly true, or at least upheld in that language. So they couldn't even say true, they didn't say upheld. And that's the thing about all this. So from a bottom up, it's just educate. So that's basically why I never shut up. I'm always writing posts. My audience is constantly diminishing as I get older and more, crackpot sounding and irrelevant to people, because I'm not like generating clickbait content. I'm just writing thoughts on out there, but I think I have some blogging posts that I spend a lot more time trying to write, and that's all about educating people. Like, say you just walk into an organization, okay, and you're like there for like Buddhism and meditation, and then before long, someone's teaching you about a sangha, right? Because that's pretty much of a gateway to Mahayana. Are you going to find people that all just, a sangha, 3 bags full, whatever? Or are you going to find any content out there to jog you into critical thinking to say, so a sangha what? He went to another universe and wrote down all these books from a lama that hadn't been born, a Buddha that hadn't come yet. He went to the past, to a different universe where he existed, and then a sangha just happened to come back with all these books, which is Mahayana. So the whole basis of Mahayana is, frankly, not Shakyamuni Buddha. It's just some dude, and the whole cult of weird people that made Mahayana Sutra. And then that was a thing, though. That was a thing in Indian Buddhism, that they would put people to death for making fake sutra and shastras because it was happening so much, right? Whereas now in Tibetan Buddhism, forget the Rinpoche thing, you have lineages of just rando teachings by whatever Rinpoche that become the canon of that group, and they hardly study anything except for so friends of Sogyal, like Organ Tobgyal and what's the other? He has another friend. They direct movies and stuff. Like with. Anyway, they have a whole different Churling tradition, and that's full of all of its own tantra, and all of its own that you don't find anywhere else. And so, it just gets more and more. If you go, it just gets really crazy. The further and further you go, where does this come from? Well, there was this guy who was, when he was born, flowers fell from the sky and the earth shook, and he was the originator of this lineage that just happens to be my great granddaddy, and stuff like that. So, and Sogyal was importing all that, anything he could get that was out there, because all of that has all those elements, like of pure perception above all, and rewriting history, Like I was quite upset when I just even looked at the blurb for this Rinpoche, that this latest scandal, because it said he's a tulku of a bodhisattva. So it's already kind of like, how can I be a higher level of Rinpoche? I'm not just a tulku of a teacher that was or a disciple of Padmasambhava. I'm a tulku of an actual, bodhisattva. So that kind of thing just makes me think about the victims being told, who he is. He's this, that's what they do in Rigpa. They teach who Sogyal actually is. They have this whole, and Sogyal doesn't say it. He hires his innermost students to do that. So I imagine this teacher has that whole thing, mystique around who he is. So what was the question? It was about how do you do bottom up? And so that's why I just went on this whole, like, how bizarre is it all? That's what critical, to do critical intelligence and filter out things that are dangerous or that you shouldn't just accept in their face value. That means you have to have the courage to literally question what's the source of Mahayana, what's the source of Vajrayana, what's the source of this particular lineage of Vajrayana and this particular Lama, and what's the originator of that lineage, because like the Dzogchen lineage, it's not even that comes literally from a completely other, like some people say it's Bon and others say not. So, but it's got a whole, it doesn't connect in any way to Shakyamuni whatsoever. Okay, so what, and how does it get even called Buddhism? I don't know, even though that was the main thing I was taught in Rigpa.
Tenzin, did you have input?
Yes. So
Please
relating.
go ahead.
Yeah. Regarding the question, how can we bring or can support or forward for change? Actually, I have some experience with this. And there are some patterns you can observe in it. First of all, let's take the example, the image. I don't say it literally like the mafia, but let's take the image of the mafia. The mafia cannot control themselves. And you cannot take control over the mafia because they are more powerful. So usually what you need the public investigation and let's say prosecutors from the state who have higher authority and can threaten and issue consequences on misbehavior. So actually all this crazy stuff, also in the Buddhist cults, the best place to address it is in a courtroom. Let's take the example of Donald Trump. I mean, he's basically a cult leader. But now in the courtroom, he cannot keep up with all his shiny, crazy claims. It all collapses in the reality of a fact-based investigation. So now this is one thing. To understand this, that's why it's so important to try to use criminal investigation, police, public, and then also the press, because what most umbrella organizations fear, and also Buddhists fear, is reputation. So then what happens is there is a certain amount of public pressure by either investigation or by the press. The head organizations, they get insecure and cracks come into the organization because they need to cope with it. And this losing ground opens them up to maybe open to some activists to help them to cope with the situation. And then from these cracks, activists could get into such umbrella institutions, but must be careful to not be abused for covering up, but using the cracks to bring within the organization a deeper change. You know what I mean? I think this is the only way I see it. And I don't want to say much about Germany, but actually we had this in Germany, and it started by the group of Ole Nidal, here, what is his name? Lama Ole Nidal, who tried to bring me down via a court case. I mean, at the end, I had to pay 28,000 euro and someone else 60,000 euro for false claims by him. Basically, in the beginning, the head organization, the German Buddhist Union, sided with Ole Nidal. And during a member congregation, it was pointed out, I am the person who is at fault. The problem is not the misdeeds of the Lama, but people who speak up like me. And so that's why I was present in this member congregation. So I was pointed out as the fault, not the misdeeds of the Lama. But the point is, there were also people who were fed up with the situation, and I decided to put my foot in the door and to cope with the situation and to not give up. At the end, there was a change in a way that people understood there is really a problem, and it's not a problem between me and Ole Nidal, but for all of the Buddhists. And this brought a change. So the board was exchanged, or the head of the board was exchanged, and so on and so on. And then Ole Nidal had to left on free will the German Buddhist Union because they were at risk to be kicked out, and they didn't want to be kicked out publicly, and so on. So there was a change, and then based on this, more changes came in, and actually the situation is better than in the past. but it was a play between different forces playing together, and it included that there were Buddhists in the background who observed the scenes, were fed up, gave up already, and then stepped in. So, for instance, one businessman gave me 20,000 euro for my defense. So, and from this formed a network of forces who enforced a change in the head organization, and the change is really there. It's not perfect, but there is quite of a change. So you see, there was a mixture between grassroots movement and then public pressure, and then using cracks in the head organization to go directly into it, but with a good motivation and a network to bring this change. But this depends on the time. It must be the right time. You need the right person, and you need sometimes you need right skills. I think it's very, very delicate, and it won't work in any situation because some people might have the skills, but not the network and so on. So it's a very, very difficult situation. But I know from experience it's possible.
Yeah, that's a really important point. Sometimes that could provide the answer to why certain sort of abuse cases could go on for so long, because the conditions are not be right to actually sort of have these multiple factors of public pressure, cracks in the head or in the leadership, potential whistleblowers, and also maybe some sort of state pressure, like with the law or with police or something like that. That's when there's real fear, and people and the leaders are forced to act.
Yes, and Raymond, there's one other important thing. Those people from the grassroots movement who want to bring about change, they must work on their mind not to allow images of an enemy, because if you want to bring change in a head organization, you must love these people. You must have compassion for them. You cannot see them as your enemies, because then you cannot collaborate. Because actually what brought change was, I didn't have a picture of an enemy to Ole Nida or his organization. In the evening, I sat with them on the table, and they said, "You are really brave to come to the cave of the lion to sit here with us." I said, "I don't see any lion. I only see brothers and sisters who are Buddhists like me." So, and then they saw it, I'm not acting out of hostility. And then people started to change their mind because they saw I have a good motivation. So this is another important thing, because if you are frustrated about the change, if you run against the wall, then you might end up frustrated. This might increase your aggression. This might increase your images of an enemy. And then you cannot win forces for change. Winning forces for change means you don't have pictures of an enemy. You must have compassion and love, and win people over for the change, because you have a good mind towards them. Do you understand what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because it will be difficult if you see these people in the head organization as your enemies. You must see them as friends on the way to bring about the change.
It reminds me of a joke of the Dalai Lama, Brother Tenzin. Dalai Lama was buying a burger, and then he said he paid the burger seller $3, but the burger is only cost about $2.50. Then the burger seller give Dalai Lama back 50 cents. The Dalai Lama say, "I don't need a change. Change has to come from within." So I think you are right in that way. I think we need to change from inside up and bottom up. So I wrote about this actually. There's a 7 ups actually to make the bottom up creative change happen. We have to speak up. We have to wake up. We have to stand up. We have to team up, and we have to clean up the whole system.
Yes,
7 ups actually. All up. And our spirit has to be up as well. Be highly motivated, but not depressed. Not with anger and hatred, but with positive enthusiasm. I think joyful delightfulness is necessary here. I think Sonia has to say something here.
Yes, I would like just to say one thing. We have been talking about these examples, but I can also remind one good example that came from Shambhala. as an umbrella organization. That was the case of this Sogyam Mitham Rinpoche, the son of previous Shogyen Trungpa, and he was accused of abuse, and he apologized publicly, and in that time I remember that the nun Pema Chodron, she stayed away from Shambhala organization. She took a position and she just stayed away. She didn't agree with that behavior, with that situation, and she stayed away from the organization. So this is a positive sign that not everything is agenda, mafias, whatever. But this is also the meaning. You need to have a very strong personality like Pema Chodron. That was a great nun and Shogyen Trungpa student with credibility. She came and she said, I'm out. So she took a public position. When we have this kind of figures in the umbrella organization, then it makes things much easier. What I think it is important to change. There are two factors that I didn't hear here. And I saw, I've been in a conference in Kalimpong here in India, and I realized two things. The conference was about Nalanda tradition and the importance to maintain and revive Nalanda tradition. And I realized that youth are very far away from Vajrayana, completely far away. They came in the end of the conference and they begin to ask very simple questions about Guru Padma Sambhava, about their East concerts, about monastic life and yogi life, because they didn't have any idea of these things. So I think one of the most important things to bring the change is motivate young people to begin to enter in Vajrayana and realize this is not just a group of oldies to have fun and play power games. Because sometimes Vajrayana looks like the Asura realm. I think we should bring, to the human realm. We should come down to the human realm and realize we have so many youth that really are devoted, but they are not aware of their devotion. They just born in Buddhist Vajrayana families, and they are following because father and mother follow, but they don't know nothing about Vajrayana. I realize this in many communities, Tamangs, Sherpas, etc., because they just follow the family tradition. It's just like I'm born in a Buddhist family, so I'm a Buddhist. This is one of the change. I think it's really urgent, really, really urgent, because if you have aware youth, informed youth, and well-teached youth, they will have critical thinking. So they will really apply Buddha teachings. That is, you analyze by yourself. Don't believe just because I tell. This is my first thing. Why so many people in Vajrayana follow this guru blindly? They are not applying Buddha teachings because they are not analyzing by themselves, testing by themselves. They are blindly following. So these youth, I think, will have another approach, even because they are educated already. They have degrees, they study, they are not so, they have another style of critical thinking that is not incentivized in Tibetan Buddhism, to have critical thinking. If you have critical thinking, then you are not very welcome because you can talk too much and you are a troublemaker. I talk by my own experience. So the point here is bring youth. And second is clarify very well what is Samaya and Vajra realm. So people don't be scared and don't be confused and don't make misunderstanding. If they feel threatened, hurt, abused, they don't hide behind these two words to silence. This is another thing. I think the change start here. Clarifying people, what is Samaya? What is Vajra health? Then when this is clear, I think many people will realize they were a big mistake to maintain their mouth shut because they had big mind brainwash. So thank you so much.
Another aspect, like I would like to mention here, is that we need to bring psychology and psychotherapy into the healing of this disease of Vajrayana community. For example, the dark side of any public figure, for be it a politician or a religious leader, a Rinpoche. Everybody has a dark side that we call shadow in psychology, you know. So as well, how we should heal the victims of any scandal, you know. So psychology and psychotherapists has to be brought into the picture, I think, urgently. Yeah.
No, I think
100% agree, Sherab.
Yeah.
I think that's a wonderful place to kick off into our final question, because tonight we've been discussing the response of largely of institutions, and how the nature of reactions to allegations of abuse and so on. But nowhere, or very few places, do we hear talk about helping the alleged victims. We even those of us who care, and those of us who are concerned, we often will sort of launch straight into, okay, how we're going to raise awareness, expose the alleged abuser. How can we verify the facts, which is all crucial, but as far as I can tell, we don't have much of a mechanism through which to actually say, okay, what happens when a victim comes forward? How do we talk counseling? How do we talk pastoral care? It's been decades, that Buddhism needed, new language to talk about, spiritual care in that sense. And so when bad things happen, that are not so simple as, well, at least in my opinion, they're not so simple as the death of a loved one, right? These are sort of events that involve a lot of people, like perpetrators, enablers, and outside forces. How do we do that? How can we even begin to talk about healing programs for the victims, or looking beyond mere justice, beyond simple justice for alleged abusers? Anyone have any thoughts about that?
I would like to say something related to this question, because victims are the abusers, the abused people, but for me, the first one who need to be healed are the abusers.
Right.
Because the people who have this kind of attitude, in Malaysia, for example, and other persons that project to their students their frustration, this very weird, I'm saying, but I think the abusers are the first.
I think, Sonia, we can't hear you clearly. I think you're breaking up, Sonia. Can you repeat again?
I'm sorry.
We can't hear you clearly. Yeah.
I was saying.
Yeah.
I was saying that I think that the abused people need really to be helped. But if we as deeply as psychologists, I talk about myself, and psychotherapists, those who really need help in the first place are abusers. Because, for example, in the case of this Rinpoche, and in the case of many people in Vajrayana, I know, that did horrible things, like, for example, Sogyal Rinpoche, they show patterns of narcissistic personality, borderline personality. They show very, very childhood trauma that never was to care. And then they project to the students. When they are in a power situation, they have the opportunity to put everything out. And since the students are vulnerable, it's very easy. They are very easy to be picked and damaged. So first, you heal the abusers. And I know this will be very controversial, but if you don't heal the abusers and show the abusers as the first one who are traumatized and mentally sick, then they will not do that to their students. We must begin to realize that in Vajrayana, many people have mentally
I want to
disorders.
stop you. I want to stop you because you've said it, and I want to disagree so strongly, because it's not that you're wrong in your motivation or even your decision. It's that narcissists don't think that there's anything wrong with them, and they never get therapy. So you have to almost forcibly put them into therapy, which means more like Tenzin said, of
Yes.
you need the power.
Yes.
But if you had that, would be good.
The
It's like
Sangha is the
that could
power.
be-
If you have the Sangha and
But
many things,
but
maybe
that's
you
another
have
issue
the
as
power.
well. That power that we are trying to use it to force the abuser to change, but that power can be easily abused as well, you know. So we have another layer of issue as well, you know. So we have a layer by layer kind of a lot of issues that need to be solved. Yeah, maybe.
I just said I think abusers need a lot of healing and are the first ones who need treatment.
I want
Tenzin?
to step into this. I think the first thing is the survivor is the most damaged person. So that's why the survivor needs the most attention. And attention means basically to listen and to feel and understand the pain and to express compassion. It might be difficult in certain circumstances to give it, but this should at least be the attempt. I'm a cult survivor. What I experienced is most of the Buddhists were totally incapable to have compassion. There were only 3. And one of them said, I don't understand really the problems you're talking about because I don't have the experience. But I understand your pain. I want to say, I'm sorry for this. So this expression of this listening and feeling the pain, expression of compassion is the very first thing. And in this context, the best question is, what do you need? What can I do for you? Because what I learned from survivors, sometimes they were either pressured to be silenced, so they got some amount of compassion and attention, but only to abuse the new openness of the survivor, to either force them to go public, although they didn't want, or to force to be silent, although they didn't want. So this is the very, very first step, is open up to the pain of the survivor and listen, using any means to express compassion just by being silent, whatever, and then to ask the question, what do you need? What can I do for you? And then based on the reply, you can honestly say, I'm so sorry. I cannot do this, but I will think about it, what I can do to support you, or I'm overwhelmed, I cannot do it, but I will try to think about it. So you can honestly express your reality. But first of all, the reality of the survivor has to be acknowledged. So this is the very first thing. And then based on the reply of the survivors, next steps come. But what I agree is we need impartial compassion. So then, of course, the perspective of the perpetrator also plays in, but the help, the compassion for the perpetrator is to stop him, to give him a boundary and then the consequences for his behavior. And then based on putting a brake into his misbehavior, then if there is a crack, you can use the crack to offer support for healing. But the very first thing is the support for the survivor, and the most needed action for the perpetrator is to really set a very powerful boundary, but out of compassion, not out of anger or hate. And even if it's out of anger, it's still, he needs just the boundary. So, and then if he has the boundary, it's up to it's your compassion or the surrounding to offer him ways for healing. And as Michael said, this will be very hard because most of the narcissists don't see a problem with them. But the good thing is, if they are in prison, they might sooner or later open up for therapy, because I go to prison, so I have to do with murderers, rapists, pedophiles, and so on. So I know exactly. And some of them are able to change, some won't change, and some don't want. So, and then there's another thing, this compassion also includes the institution. It's also important to have compassion for all the people in the institution. They have fear. So if you understand the fear, actually what the institution needs, they need a sane way to address the abuse. This is the best way to cope with it. So if you understand it, then you can look from the impartial compassion, needs for survivors, needs for the perpetrator, and needs for the institution. And everybody has different needs and a different process. And actually, the needs of the institution might be to increase public pressure. And you can do this also out of compassion. And then actually, if you do this, everybody is helped. Because the
wanna
institution won't continue to cover up and so on.
I wanna ask Saskia something. I wanna ask, like, listening to everything.
Yeah,
here,
sure. It's just my battery is almost empty. The battery
So
of
you
my
should
laptop,
go.
because
You
I'm
should
here
tell
in
us.
the garden of a restaurant, because the internet is really very bad and the internet is just very bad. But you can ask me something. Yeah, sure.
So I wanted to ask
Yeah?
you, listening to this conversation, like, what I understand, like, I really wanted to invite you into this with Sherab and meet all these people, and I wanted to empower you to talk about what's happened into you. But when you talked about it, you said that you aren't allowed to talk about a lot of things. So you're in a
Yeah.
tough. So is there anything that you need that to be offered that can help alleviate that your situation? What kind of things? And you can also can you mention, like, what group it is that you had trouble with, what teacher, or is that something you can't say either? Because that could help establish us to connect.
Yeah, I think I better not. I think I better not provide you with any more details, but already talking about it within a seminar right now, that's within the video call, is helping a lot already. And yeah, also meeting some people like you that are trying to bring those things into the light, that helps already. Because yeah, there's not much support for the victims here, and they all run away to their own country. Um, so yeah, well, I'm just hanging around a bit with the French people in the village, but I don't speak much with the Buddhists anymore. So it already helps to be part of a community. Yeah.
So Saskia, I want to ask you: are you giving up on this path of Dharma or being a Buddhist? Are you giving up because of this?
Um, well, for the moment, I did actually. Yes. Because also the abuse. I mean, also the Dalai Lama has had a scandal, and the abuse goes up all the way. Yeah, it goes from the top, and well, maybe the moment he will be prosecuted, that will change for me. Maybe then I will restore my interest in Tibetan Buddhism. But for the moment, I really have problems with staying interested in Tibetan Buddhism. Yeah, because of all this.
Yeah.
And also, yeah, I haven't been a victim, but also now we're talking about it, I really feel traumatized. I can see it also in the
One of
mirror.
the
I can
things
see it.
one of the things I like to talk about sometimes is I am a victim, right? But a lot of people, when I was leaving, or around the time when I was thinking of leaving, they said, I never play the victim. So then they kind of connected the word play as if it's fake and victim, whereas I'm genuinely harmed and
Play the
saddened.
victim.
So I don't think I don't think to be scared of relate. Over time you may relate to that word more. I don't know. It wasn't immediate for me. I'm for very many years down the road, but I'm still messed up, so I can understand where you're coming from. I didn't speak for years after I left. I was just hiding out. I was scared of getting killed and all kinds of things.
Yeah, and it was realist, was it? The anxiety of getting killed. It was a realist.
Yeah, I went to Thailand, where I still am, even though I've been back to Australia a few times, and in Thailand, people can get killed for a low price, and I knew already Sogyal very well, that he just saw that anyone that was in the way should die. But he's a master he was a master narcissist because he was covert. You couldn't tell. You could tell he was kind of narcissistic, but you couldn't tell he was playing the saint, and the victim himself all the time. And his apologies were like, "I'm sorry that you feel harmed," not even accepting your harm. So they're all. He was like making out like he's apologizing, but they're all fake apologies, and so I knew that he could easily just say, "Oh, it would be better for Sungye to be dead," and then someone who was willing to go. So I hid out anyway. Whether it was in my mind or a real thing, who knows? But I was scared, so I took measures to be not very easy to find. And then when he died, I felt safe again. So.
Excuse me, Saskia, you said you were afraid to be killed. Did I understand well?
I don't know if she's afraid of that, but I know she's probably got other fears. I said that I was afraid to be killed.
No, I was just asking because I understand that way. Maybe I understood wrong. So. You said that, Saskia? You said that you were afraid to be killed?
No, I said it. Saskia said
also
other fears, like legal threats.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a shout out to all the victims out there. I think we are here with you. All the victims need to be heard, and we are listening. And please connect
you
with
asked
us.
Me something?
Oh, okay.
Yes, I asked. I asked if I understood well. You said that you were afraid to be killed, Saskia? You said that?
She can't hear properly.
I understand.
Saskia, can you hear clearly?
No, I can't hear, but because the connection is very bad.
But now you can hear me now? Now you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you hear
yes.
me? Okay, now I
Yes,
was asking, did you said you were afraid to be killed, or I understand wrong? You were afraid to be killed.
That was Michael who said
I was wrong.
And,
okay, thank you. So I understood wrong. Thank you so
no,
much
it was.
for clarifying.
I'm not so.
Okay, thank you.
But it was the story of Michael, but no, I'm not afraid of any physical violence or to be killed or anything like that. No.
Thank you, thank you. I understand wrong. Thank you so much.
So
I can explain a bit more. Maybe it goes more what I've experienced was.
The connection is bad, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's really bad. Yeah.
Hope her battery's not dead.
What I've experienced is that I was threatened in more subtle ways, not by violence, not by death threats or something like that, but more subtle. But still, still wasn't fine.
So
I'm not
I
sure
think we
you can hear me.
Yeah. There's a bit of lag at your end, but I mean, the fact that you're still with us, I think actually I count that as very, very lucky. We're very great that we're still sort of together as we sort of start to wind down the stream. I think this is one of the most thought-provoking and kind of like sort of serious and based streams that I've ever hosted. Because it really cuts to the heart of what we all know exists, but have always been afraid to give it its name, which is power, right? And that currency, that social currency, moves across our lives. It defines relationships at work, in the family. And even between friends, and let's just call it for what it is. It defines relationships in a tutor and a mentor and a student, between fellow disciples within a given religious community. And I think taking this forward, it will be a collective effort, and it needs to, it needs a really kind of it really needs a kind of a collective kind of like understanding, like what Michael highlighted. You have to see things. You have to see people for who they are, specifically narcissists who don't see anything wrong with what they're doing. But at the same time, you look at, sort of like what others have highlighted when you approach it from, sorry, excuse me, Tenzin, you're next. And especially what Tenzin said about approaching it from a non-hostile angle. You say you're saying, I'm doing this for the good, with the right intentions. And in any case, like those institutions and leaders often see themselves as under siege. They see the outside, they see the outsider perspective and things like that. Tenzin, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, when listening to Saskia about being part anymore of the practice of Tibetan Buddhism and so on, I think there's an important thing which comes to my mind to increase compassion for the survivors. A survivor loses everything. A survivor loses the belonging, the purpose of life, and the spiritual practice. Everything which grounds a person is being lost in this process when a survivor is abused. He cannot trust human beings anymore. She cannot trust human beings anymore. She cannot trust the practice. She cannot trust the religious direction. And even the purpose of life is lost. And then for some people, even they lose home, a roof over their head, and job and other things. So basically, a survivor is in the most vulnerable position and needs the most immediate and basic support in so many, many ways. And most people totally underestimate the loss of any grounding when these things come up, and when the survivor realizes I was abused and starts to address it. And then on top of it, the survivor has to face all of this hostility and ostracism and the silencing and the enabling. And there is far more for survivor in Buddhism. It's not only about this life. It's also about future lives. So it is very, very, it really goes deep.
She wanted to, Saskia, mute. Unmute, please. Unmute, please.
Unmute, please.
Saskia.
I'll unmute you.
It is.
Yes.
Just to mention, I'm not even the victim here or the survivor. I'm just a whistleblower that was trying to help others, and then I had the same sort of experience. So I'm not even a victim, like a real victim.
There's some beautiful concrete words from Amy Ui here. She said, Saskia, you don't have to leave the Dharma. Just enjoy some nice Buddhist music and stay safe and peaceful. Meanwhile, perhaps there are so many ways to be in touch with the Dharma.
enjoy.
Thank you. Thanks, Amy. Yep.
Well, I think we've gone over 1 hour 30 minutes, and we are about to touch an hour and 45 minutes. So I think I'd like to wrap this up and sort of just thank every single one of our guests tonight, Michael, Venerable Tenzin, Sonia, Saskia, and Sherab, for your everyone's insightful, heartfelt, and just all round incredibly valuable contributions to this discussion. I don't think there are many groups out there, hosting live streams discussing what we do with the same kind of, seeing things as they are, discussing, fearlessly and with empathy and with clear-sightedness what's going on. And so thank you for sharing your stories, and thank you for everyone for your bravery and your compassion. And, I hope to be able to do this again with you at some time in the future. Sherab, you will do. What would you like to close up, or shall I?
Yeah, you call up. Yeah, maybe you can
Yeah.
ask maybe Tenzin Lam to do a dedication prayer. Or, yep, prayer for the
Oh, yeah,
victims for
sure.
healing. Maybe.
Tenzin, could you do us the honor?
Oh, my prayers I know from heart are all in German language. So maybe someone who is native English language can do the dedication.
Sprechen Sie Deutsch.
Maybe we could do the dedication about the bodhicitta. No, I mean,
Yeah.
or in body,
Yes.
meaning the compassion and the impartial
Yes.
compassion for everyone.
Right.
So for all of our merits we have accumulated by giving thoughts to protect people from harm, abuse, may all wounds and harms be healed, and may the precious bodhicitta, the great compassion, and the wisdom realizing emptiness, may this arise where it has not arisen, may it increase and flourish to full moon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
May it be so. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you so much for viewers' comments, and thank you so much for joining us on this edition, this episode of Sattva. Hope everyone has a wonderful day or night. Take care, everybody, and thanks for joining me. Cheers.
Bye bye. Good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye. You stay
Hello.
here.
Yes.
You're still
please stay.
here.
Yeah. We're still here.
Oh my goodness. Play.
How do you think, Madam Tenzin, you like it? I mean, we should do more of this kind of dialogue. Yeah. From time to
Oh.
time. Yeah. I
Oh.
think nobody do that. I mean, only us so far, I think. Yeah.
Is there finished? No finish.
No, finished, but not finished. My wife's coming.
Finish or not finish.
Hi.
And
Hello,
I started
how are
eating
you?
during the
Hello.
end because I'm so disrespectful. I started to eat
Hello.
because I was so hungry.
Oh. Thank you so much, Venerable Tenzin, for your words about the victims. I like your approach. That is very true. I would like to thank you for explaining from that perspective. You know, I receive many complaints from many victims almost daily, you know, in my email or in my